Hello comrades! Today I will tell you a story about Misha, who tried to beat the bonus campaign without Rexxar or any other heroes. This campaign has only 4 missions. Shouldn't be too bad, right? Okay, the first mission starts with Misha. Due to my rules, I won't use Rexxar or his abilities. That means Misha shouldn't die. So I have no legal options to resurrect him, at least for now. We need to reach Troll, but grunts won't let Misha inside without Rexxar, so I have to move him here carefully. He is not allowed to take or deal damage, except in unavoidable situations. The main problem with this mission is that all enemies on the map respawn after some time. So I have to kill only the few necessary enemies to ensure Misha survives and can help Rexxar get through. Once inside, only Rexxar can accept main quests, since Misha just can't talk. There are 3 missions available here, and I took the easiest one, to help goblins secure the caverns. But even the first pack of centaurs is tough. There are many of them blocking my path. Luckily, I found a narrow path to squeeze through. Since Misha can't enter the caverns, I sent Rexxar there as well. Here, I discovered the first mechanic I will abuse. Every time Rexxar enters a new area, he automatically resummons Misha at full HP without using his spell. This is much faster than regeneration, which is painfully slow. For context, Misha regenerates 1 health every 3 seconds, making full regeneration take up to 45 minutes in-game. But let's get back to the caverns and goblins. Honestly, I don't know why goblins even need help, since they have infinite reinforcements and easily clear everything themselves. I will use only goblins for clearing enemies. Plus, it's really easy to farm gold here. However, once the quest is completed, enemies stop respawning. Useful to know. With the gold earned, I return to the town and hire a troll hunter. The next quest involves killing harpies, including their boss. Since Misha can't attack air units, I need 2 more troll hunters. For this, I needed an additional 1,500 gold. I choose a farming spot near the closest hidden fountain and spend an hour farming gold for 2 additional hunters. Boring as hell, right? But finally, the fun begins. I barely fought through the harpies and reached their boss. And let me tell you, this boss was no joke. It dealt chaos damage, quickly destroying my hunters. I could only deal about 400 damage before losing my forces. That wasn't nearly enough. Worse yet, all the harpies along the path had respawned. I tried looking for other mercenary spots, but found only a warlock, who was both far away and weak. Although he had a chain lightning, the harpy boss regenerates health faster than he regained mana, so it's a no-go. While waiting with my hunters considering options, I realized something crucial. Harpies doesn't respawn in places occupied by my units. Checking further confirmed that enemies respawn only out of player's vision. Then I noticed another option. Kudos. They don't fight, but importantly, they cost no food, allowing me to have an infinite number, given enough gold. My plan became clear. Create a path filled with kodos to prevent enemy respawns, allowing quick reinforcements for my hunters. But for this, I needed more money, a lot more. And honestly, I didn't want to spend an entire day farming. But there is an option. The Goblin Caverns, and since I already cleared them, I have to reload back. I only wasted about 3 hours here, but those 3 hours were full of actively controlling goblins, sending them to kill kobolds. In the end, I decided I was done, wrapped it up, and let the troll collect all dropped items to sell because, well, I might need that gold. You can judge me in the comments. Now I have 14,000 gold. That should be enough, right? I went back to town and bought 3 headhunters and 3 kodos, because they have a 5-minute cooldown. Next, I started clearing the path to the harpies, positioning kodos to keep the entire path visible so there wouldn't be any respawns. It worked well. However, enemies started spawning nearby, but that wasn't a big problem. Now we are back to the big bad harpy. The plan is to hit her a few times with free rolls while they're alive, and quickly send in reinforcements from town before she regenerates. And it's working. Still, it's a slow but steady process. All I need is to make sure I've gathered enough gold for this mission. Finally, she is down. I thought that was the end of my suffering, but it wasn't. The next quest involves collecting some grass in the Reno area. Doesn't sound too bad at all, but I need to clear a path and reposition all the kodos. But there's a cave, and I can't take my trolls inside. Additionally, rhinos inside respawns. So I spotted easier grass locations and started clearing them, abusing entrance mechanics. In the end, I just used my Misha to aggro a few rhinos, letting my Rohan grab the last piece of grass. Once that's done, you know the drill. Clear the path and maintain visibility with kodos for easier movement between locations. Then there's a cave segment. Just a regular cave, nothing special. You can refresh your bear and enemies don't respawn here. After exiting, there's a section with an alliance base. And here begins the unfun part, waiting. The forces don't respawn, but there are many enemies at once, so I had to wait a while for my units to regenerate. Still, this was only the beginning. Next, we travel to Vol'jin, and oh boy, there are islands with crabs and stalkers. The first thing I tried was running past everything with Misha, and it worked perfectly. The following section included some Wind Riders, who should have been effective against ships, but they weren't. Just slowly killing them. Nevertheless, nothing too difficult. Next, we need to set fire to 5 places on the map, which are defended by a good number of sea giants. Misha can't get past here, but I got 2 hunters. Great. I decided that this part should be done using only hunters, as Misha didn't fit into the shuttle. And oh boy, those trolls hunters regenerate slowly, very slowly. I don't want to wait too long, and I can't handle a level 5 sea giant in a straight fight. So I tried to kite. They won't chase you too far from their original positions, so I could kill them mostly without taking damage. With that tactic, I began clearing the area. It took a long time, but it was more fun than just waiting around. You can't use only headhunters to ignite the location, you need to bring a hero there. So I must clear as much as possible. In the second half, I got 3 more hunters, increasing my damage output, but the enemies remaining tough, including a level 10 giants capable of slingshotting rocks at you. Finally, that's it for the section. But now I need to return, and stalkers have respawned, plus there are many crabs on the road. Misha can't kill them, due to their quick respawn. So I cleared halfway, aggroed the crabs with Misha, and allowed Rohan to safely run through. On returning, there's one more quest in this mission, to speak with Jaina. But there's actually no Jaina, only an ambush. After a short cutscene, Rexxar is teleported in and takes unavoidable damage from Rifleman, who was standing in a range specifically targeting heroes. That's unfortunate. But I accepted this situation, ran away with my troops, and began carefully clearing out the enemies. The main challenge here, they have 2 healers that need to be taken down first. And additionally, I realized that they have 2 mortar teams dealing more damage to their own units than to Misha. With the last enemy down, the first mission of this campaign was completed. The second mission begins with another large mob. Here, you can't hire anyone. That's really disappointing. And I was expecting a lot of troubles. But you know what? Blizzard forgot to add creeps here. There are just many roads and almost no enemies. Good for me. But it felt a bit sad. So I used Misha to soak up some hits and headed to the first quest. The first location we have to visit is where we get Samuro, without any alternatives. Alright, I will handle this part completely stealthily, ghost style, so no one can see or hurt me. Here we have a few towers that can spot invisible units. My tactic was to create a coppice to soak damage, allowing me to safely enter the base. At the top, there are also some towers, and luckily, mortar teams. I learned that mortar shots deal area damage, so I used my clones to lure their fire, destroying those towers. This worked great for the first 3 towers, but for the last 2, there are no mortar teams and my copies don't deal damage, meaning they can't trigger explosions. And you just can't easily run past because you will get spotted by numerous enemies. At initial run, I didn't know what to do, but after some time I solved it. So I decided to land a quick hit to trigger the tower explosion. The final position also had a tower, but thankfully there was a mortar tower that helped me reach the end. Next, there was a cutscene with Jaina. Once we returned to this land, humans were replaced by Nagas. And again, we are positioned too closely, making the first fight unavoidable. Nagas turned out to be insanely strong against Misha. Let me explain. There are basically 5 different enemies here: Sirens, Cordels, Gods, Snapdragons and Royal Naga Gods, with all upgrades. And I still have only level 1 Misha. So Misha can barely defeat a Snapdragon if he manages to bait it out and hide behind trees, causing it to enter melee range for the first hit. And even then, you need some luck to win the fight. Do you think a Siren is easier? No, she is just as tough, because she deals magic damage, which is particularly effective against Misha. Moreover, I need to drain her mana completely to have any chance of winning, as her Frost Armor ability could decide the fight. And I don't have access to a healing fountain, and the enemy's regeneration rate is higher than mine. But the worst enemy here is the Royal Guard. Do you know how many Royal Guards here in this map? 18 on a single map. Do you know how many level 1 Mishas I need to kill just 1 guard? Also 18. 18 Mishas. And I must eliminate them to allow my units to proceed. Yeah. So I started testing which level of Misha could do the job. You know which one worked? Level 4. And even at max level, he could barely manage it. In the end, leveling him up was the right decision, since there were few opportunities to cheese this fight. At level 4, Misha has significantly more health, better regeneration, higher damage, and the Maul passive ability, which has a 35% chance to stun an opponent. With this upgraded Misha, I continued fighting the Nagas. However, due to my original rule of using only 1 Misha, I needed to level him up earlier, so he'd respawn after the Samura section and receive all upgrades. With this improved Misha, it's possible for him to survive the initial fight and hide my heroes safely. At level 1 Misha simply can't do this. He gets killed every time. But now, with a level 4 Misha, I could finally reach the healing fountain. But the next challenge was the Kotals. Misha can't attack air units. Fortunately, I could skip the first 2 packs by letting my heroes escape safely while Misha soaked up some damage. Nearby, there's another healing fountain in the forest. But what comes next? Even more Nagas. Positioned too close and too numerous. The first enemies were some Murlocs, accompanied by 3 Kotals. What is this? Misha can't survive against that much damage while also fighting ground forces. So I had to use Rexxar's Quillbars. To minimize their usage, I also maxed out this ability. The initial plan was to allow the use of Quillbars exclusively to clear air units. With this tactic, I managed to progress through the Nagas until reaching the final room. There a level 10 Sea Witch awaited. Running back to the old fountains wasn't viable anymore. The Sea Witch regenerates quickly, and due to her frost arrows, I couldn't hit her fast enough to deal significant damage. I cleared the nearest fountain with level 6 Witch, and prepared for the final encounter. Even with a fountain nearby, defeating her was barely possible. When I got lucky, Misha could land 2 free stuns, helping me survive and reposition. At 50% HP, she begins casting the Forked Lightning, which is extremely painful, forcing me to use some saves strategically to survive and continue dealing stuns. At her last bit of health, she uses Mana Shield, which eventually leaves her out of mana and unable to slow me, finally allowing me to win. Now it's time to return to Terramore, but this time we must escape. Since there's no fountain along the way, this mission became prolonged, as regeneration still takes considerable time. Here we encountered a new troublesome enemy, Clerics, who used this spell inflicting huge damage on Misha. Even then, I finally found a healing fountain, but it was guarded by 2 Clerics and it was challenging to kill them. At least, I now had access to a healing fountain. When I encountered some Griffons, I again was forced to use Quillbars. And after that, I expected around 3 Clerics, but 6 with Paladin. Are you kidding me? That's impossible, they can just one-shot me. But I'm lucky the enemies are positioned too close to the coast, so I can jump out with Misha, deal some damage and then run away. However, they are healing themselves. But with a bit luck, there is a way to drain some mana from the Clerics, and combined with stuns, it becomes manageable, although it still took numerous retries. Once I killed the first one, I understood the method and proceeded further. The next island had a lot of enemies, and guess what? Misha took care of them all. But there was a Paladin who hit very hard, but he was vulnerable to stuns. And there was the Mountain King, but he's unbeatable. I didn't have a nearby fountain for quick healing, and he could nearly one-shot me from 50% HP down to 0. However, I realized that I could just move him away. For some reasons, stuns changed the unit's default position, so I cleared the path just enough for Rexxar to trigger the last gate and escape. Next, we needed to help Cairn rescue his son. First, Rexxar had to reach the Tauren village. Since Misha couldn't trigger the quest line himself, at least Misha could hire some Taurens for free. What a pleasure! They weren't enough to completely clear Rexxar's path, but we could resurrect a nearby Tauren to lead the charge instead of Misha. Essentially, the entire level involved clearing the path and continuously resurrecting Taurens, making it manageable. Next, we headed to the Augurs, and this part was almost the same. The challenge here was defeating about 150 enemies who couldn't resurrect, but thankfully we had access to a healing fountain. It wasn't difficult, just time consuming especially the final owlbear enemy, which took about 25 or 30 minutes of running back and forth. Then came the ogre boss fight, but Misha didn't appear, forcing me to summon him manually. The problem was that the ogre boss was extremely tough with lifesteal and healing wards, making a direct fight impossible. Although you could free some lizards to help, but they weren't enough to win the fight. On one attempt, I noticed something interesting. After moving Misha quickly to free the lizards, the boss started ignoring me completely and returned to his default position. Even if I hit him, he wouldn't react until reaching his point. That became the solution against his lifesteal: just simply prevent him from hitting me by constantly moving around. And eventually, he was defeated. Now we arrived at a final map of this mission. Here we had to destroy the castle, and for this mission we were finally allowed to build some units. Initially, I tried using torrents as they are easy to resurrect and push forward, but there were so many enemies that destroying even the first enemy camp took around 15 minutes, which was inefficient. After scouting the map, I found a sea path leading to the castle, but it was heavily defended, preventing my torrents from directly approaching it. Eventually, I identified some spots where my destroyers could safely hit the castle from a distance, but this place should be cleared from the trees using enemy ships. This position wasn't entirely safe due to enemy ships and vision from nearby units, but after several attempts, I proved good enough to deal consistent damage to the castle. I was a bit concerned about my main base, as enemy hordes easily killed my guards. However, the main base turned out to be essentially invincible, so I was safe. I destroyed the castle and could proceed to the third mission. Well, the third mission was the real problem began. Everything up to this point was trivial compared to this mission. The objective here was to destroy a fully operational human base, defended by nearly every type of human unit and two heroes, a mage and a paladin. What do I mean by fully operational? It has workers, capable of repairing damaged towers, production structures that can continuously rebuild defeated units, and defensive towers. Is that crazy? It really is. I checked their base and they had only 3 workers. I decided to test whether workers would at least stop rebuilding after dying. My plan was simple. Approach the closest tower, hit it once, force workers to repair it, and then kill them. And it worked initially. After killing the first worker, they didn't immediately create a new one. Great. I repeated it for all 3 workers and double-checked. And unfortunately, they eventually started producing a new worker. But at least they maintained a maximum of 1 worker now. Still, even that single worker posed a significant threat. I started examining my options, and there weren't many. I had no access to a healing fountain, I couldn't destroy towers because the workers would repair them, and killing units was pointless because they would just rebuild them. Then I discovered something useful. There were mortars, which could help me destroy towers with splash damage. Thus, Misha became a potential sacrifice to deal indirect damage to these structures. To make any progress, I had to break one of my rules. I should allow myself to resummon Misha. Even with this adjustment, it was painful. I sent Misha to attack the first tower, damaging it as much as possible. After Misha was defeated, I quickly summoned him again, killed the worker, and continued attacking. The splash damage from mortars helped, but I barely managed to destroy just the first tower. I also started summoning boars to assist, as I couldn't always handle the workers alone. Thankfully, workers didn't rebuild entire structures. That was at least some relief. But another issue arose. Rexxar's mana depleted too quickly, and that wasn't sustainable for destroying the remaining structures. So I decided to get Rexxar some mana regeneration items. So I reloaded to the second mission, visited all shops to buy as many items for mana regeneration as possible, and returned prepared. Now I was ready to summon Misha rapidly without waiting for mana regeneration. I resumed my assault with Misha and successfully destroyed the initial towers. My next goal was to prevent units from being produced again. I started with the nearest barracks, and with mortar support, it wasn't difficult. However, the further my target was, the more trouble I faced. Misha would arrive slower than the enemy worker could repair. To handle this, I attacked other buildings first, distracting workers and buying some time for my main objective. After taking down all the barracks, I can clear out footmen, knights and riflemen. Next, I had to eliminate clerics and mage production, but enemy heroes complicated things significantly. I needed a new solution for the worker issue. Then I noticed a distant tower. I damaged it slightly using a boar without fully destroying it, forcing the worker into an endless repair loop. Now, Misha could safely clear the remaining production buildings without interference from the worker. Finally, I had to deal with the heroes. The paladin was exceptionally strong due to his lifesteal and shield. Freak-wheel boars and Misha together couldn't handle him. Was this the end? Definitely not. During my attack, a decorative wall was destroyed, revealing an inaccessible area. However, I could summon quillbears there. It wasn't enough on its own, as I couldn't position Rexxar safely there, but I realized that the paladin had a critical weakness: his limited attack range. I summoned Misha behind the block path, allowing the paladin to see him, and at a specific spot, the paladin remaining interested in Misha but couldn't reach him with his attacks. But Misha could. This strategy was the solution. Afterward, dealing with a mage was comparatively easy. Once I destroyed the castle, I gained access to boats which were necessary to destroy several enemy ships. That part was straightforward. And now, the final map. It's essentially a massive Dota-style map, featuring 3 paths and countless minions. My goal here is simple: defeat Admiral Prodmore. But man, the number of minions he sends is enormous. The Horde, on the other hand, has ogres, trolls, orcs and taurens. Misha alone cannot really help much here. According to my test, you can actually lose in this mission if all orc buildings are destroyed, so hiding and waiting for broken triggers isn't an option. There's also a healing fountain, which could help Misha survive, but the enemies will constantly attack there, while the other 2 paths eventually fall. Thus, the only viable option is engaging in a direct fight, not just with Misha, but with all quillbears as well. The first attack isn't that bad, since our forces are initially strong, but once we face towers, we can't immediately break it. The enemy numbers grow rapidly. Eventually, their units become too numerous, creating an unstoppable wave that pushes us back, forcing us into a defense. Holding against such massive forces becomes a huge challenge. I can control only a maximum of 4 units here, which is clearly insufficient. Therefore, I need to eliminate the most dangerous enemies first, using my limited special units strategically. The greater threats are clerics, due to their powerful healing abilities, mages, who deal heavy area damage with their spells, and Rifleman, who provide consistent range damage. Other enemy units can typically be handled by our AI-controlled army. Once I neutralized the main threat, it became a matter of time building up our forces and preparing to strike back. However, this mission constantly swings between defense and counterattack. It's crucial to identify potential problem spots early and quickly support the defenses there. To reduce enemy aggression effectively, we must destroy their barracks, but they're located deep behind enemy lines. Before reaching them, I need to clear all enemy towers first, so our Horde allies will assist me in breaking through. After several defenses cycles, we finally gain access to the enemy's first barracks, which I gladly destroy. From this point, enemy aggression significantly decreased, but only for this particular line. This process must be repeated for all 3 parts. Why all 3? Because Admiral Proudmoore is no joke. He is supported by 2 additional heroes and protected by multiple towers. Only after fully clearing each path we can start confronting Admiral Proudmoore himself and his personal guard. Proudmoore can easily wipe out all of the forces single-handedly. However, Misha is uniquely effective here due to his bash ability, capable of interrupting the Admiral's channeling spells. And with support from the Horde, it is just barely possible to beat the Rexxar campaign using only beasts from his side. And this is the end for my journey in WarCraft 3 without heroes.